Alright guys, this is Heal on 6 back again with another deck profile for another 5-round tournament here at Next Level. Today we have our winner, Cardell. We have his winning deck, which is Red Zorga. Now this deck is pretty much slept on, so we have our basically our resident Zorga player, Cardell, here to rep the deck. So explain to us, how when you're thinking with the deck, the way you build the deck. Show us from the very beginning your ride line, how you did.
Okay, so can you see it right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so standard ride line, grade 0, grade 1 ranker chain. Obviously, when you play it, when you ride, obviously second with the starter, draw 1. But you're playing this core because it's Zorga's bread and butter. So you Soul Blast, draw 2 cards, and drop an order card from your hand. So you keep the 2 cards you just drew. It mitigates your hand, so you have enough to block. Sometimes you want to see shield value early, so you can block your opponent. Also, you want to draw into some orders early as well. And you basically essentially are neutral. You don't really neg anything. You're neutral there. Second is Black Tier Husk. Obviously, you ride, you ditch a unit, or an order. You grab an order from your drop zone, put it back to your hand. So it's a free cost. You drop the order if you want, bounce it back to your hand. And obviously, the last one is the main key card for the deck is Zorga, Red Zorga, to be specific. His skill, obviously, I don't know if you guys know, but it's Soul Blast 1, drop a card from hand, choose the order card from your drop and add it to your hand. We're playing, in my opinion, I feel like you need to be very aggressive with this deck because Zorga's main grade 3 skill is already aggressive. So we're gonna go with 8 crit. Some people I know don't run the 4K crits because they want to have a 5K base with the other crit. So then if they're boosting or doing, there's a cheeky play that you can do that people do with it, but I choose to run the soul charging crit because it can help you in really, really difficult situations where you don't have soul. You soul charge it and then you're active next turn for Zorga's skill because Zorga does cost 1 soul blast. And you may think that's not important, but you'll see like during games that it is very important that you need soul. I was experimenting with 3 fronts and 3 draws. I tried 3 draws. It was okay, but I realized using a draw, you have to target 1 unit, and it gives that unit the +10. But that's also for a rush game. If someone's rushing you, you have draw triggers on defense to draw cards. But I swapped it out to 3 fronts so that if I have when I have a strong turn with 2 dragons in my front row that have crits, I not only get +10 from Zorga or a Persona Ride, I also get another +10 additionally for the front trigger, and the dragons will have that. So it's a very, very aggressive turn and pretty much difficult to block. You can wind up with either you start with 10 or 11 cards in hand, and depending on your damage, you might actually wind up having 0 cards or 2 cards in your hand, depending on your damage count. Obviously for heal triggers, because you want to heal on 6, and you want to basically heal dragons that have been hit, and also certain important orders such as your triple drive order. The heal situation here, where the effect heals are here, which is if a unit attacks multiple times, you can drop this and it gains 15k, so it's a 15k, 25k guard, couple them with your Vanguard, which is usually a 38. And then the same thing with the critical, if your opponent has a crit because of a skill, you gain an additional 15k here as well, so it's a 25k block. So that's just there for the matchup if you run into a unit that gains crit by abilities, such as the same deck like a mirror match, or even like Buff Saga. Even though Buff Saga is super strong, you can still have this as a really strong card. Plus Zorga he can tank very well with fronts in your deck and PGs that you can recycle. Over trigger, no need to explain. It's the game breaking cards. 3 Persona Rides, because you need that extra power to damage your opponent. It also helps you reach a certain threshold of power when you Persona Ride. So hitting the Persona Ride would be 23, and then your dragons are sitting there with +10k from their own skills when you bring them out of drop zone, which is the next part I'm getting into. These get +10ks and a crit when you Alchemagic. So Zorga's passive skills to give units in your front row 5k when he Alchemagics. So coupled in with an order that we're going to get into real fast after this, it basically gives you another Persona Ride essentially, and the dragons become 2 card blocks, or possibly 3 card blocks depending on your opponent's hand, which is very often it might become a 3 card block. It's very difficult for them because they're lethal. They have double crits, and this is the card that is basically one of your game winning cards. And I prefer to run 4 because 3, I've seen people run 3. I do not like 3 because, especially how the meta is right now, Ava binding your dragons, you have Tempest spinning your dragons back to the bottom of the deck. So I think you might want to see your dragons as soon as possible, which is there's a funny rush that you can do with it as well. Grade 2s, honestly, just a dog. Shadow Cloak, you open with 2 Shadow Cloaks, you can rush down your opponent if you were going second. You get to drop your orders to your drop zone, whatever you choose. You can set it up for your grade 3 turn. You can even pop off during your actual grade 2 turn with your orders too if you decide to pressure your opponent. Grade 1s, for Headhunter, I see people cut this and bring it to like 3 or 2. I prefer to keep Headhunter just in case a scenario comes where I have to counterblast 2 and then I have no counterblast for my next turn. I can block my opponent's turn if I don't want to take a damage, call Headhunter the next turn, and effectively nullify my cost for a counterblast when I'm doing Alchemagic. So I would have, if a card says counterblast 1, it would nullify it and I would just basically do it for free. So it helps you in that situation where you don't want to take a damage. 4 PGs because there's over triggers in the game and there's crits in the game, so you want to PG these so you don't die. Some people do cut this and they go to 3. My main reason for not playing the Blitz order, honestly, is because sometimes there's really rare occasions is that you might drop this. You might mill a card and you might need a booster in a very early game, and then when it's a Blitz order, you don't have that booster. The only upside to that is that I don't think Zorga can grab that Blitz order because he's actually just saying a normal order. There's a card that used to let you there's a grade 1 order that lets you bind a card and add any order from your hand, but I do not play that card in this deck at the moment, but that's a little bit more techie. This card, Belle, I used to play a long time ago. I decided to run her in at 1 for the Ava matchups because of the binding. And if you basically are faced with your dragons being binded, you can bring them back out. Belle grabs all of your binded units, any card from your bind zone, sends it back to the drop zone, and she gains 5k for each. This also helps when you stack orders. Late game, if a game gets drawn out and you need to pressure your opponent like crazy, you bring Belle out. Like that was my final turn against my opponent who was playing Youthberg. Called her out. I had like 4 orders, I believe, binded, and she got plus 20. So, and that was a dragon being boosted by 27k. I had a Persona Ride. Dragons hitting an insane number. That my opponent has 5 cards. They cannot block this. Unless they have PG, but it was a very tough situation for my opponent. Orders. So some people do not run 4 of the Miasma orders from Festival Collection. I decided to run 4 mainly because this is going to be your bread and butter. This is a Counterblast 1. You are on grade 3. You have to be on grade 2 to activate this. Counterblast 1, choose a card equal to or less than your Vanguard's grade. So you never really want to get a grade 3 for your drop zone. You want to get either a grade 1 or 2, mainly grade 1s. And very, very rare if you want a grade 0 and you have no soul and you're already pressuring your opponent with Van and your rear guards as there are 2 dragons in the front, you can actually call this out to the back row of your Vanguard because usually your board is already set up. You have like insane columns with like 48 on each side and you haven't even swung it and your Vanguard swinging for like 33 and you're boosting with a 4k and you're triple driving. They're already deciding how to block Zorga and then they have to worry about your 2 crit dragons. So this is going to go into your soul and give a unit plus 2, which would, if you hit no triggers, one of your dragons would be 50k. So that's really nice. And you also give your soul to Zorga. Zorga has that soul again. And you can pop off your next turn as well, provided if you don't have a Persona Ride. So, next order. This is the one I teched in. This is Regurgitation from the Underworld. This card, I was deciding whether I should run or not, mainly because Zorga has a soul problem in this version of Zorga. Because you Soul Blast to unlock Alchemagic. You can't just Alchemagic like Blue Zorga. You have to Soul Blast 1 to unlock Alchemagic. And this also Soul Blasts. So it's very difficult at times to use this card, depending on the matchup. However, there's times where you have a disgusting like drop zone. You'll have like a nice 2 grade 1s in your drop zone, 2 headhunters, and you have 2 dragons, and you need to pop off. So what I would do is go for a triple drive order, which I'm going to get into really fast after this. Triple drive, and then you use this on top of that, and you most likely Persona Road, so you're already giving 10k to the front row, and then you're getting a 5k passive from Zorga, so you're giving plus 15 to the front row. Your dragons are swinging for 15, that's 25, that's 30s without boosters. So you retire a grade 1 in your opponent's field, and because you Alchemagic, this card gets you 2 grade 1s. So you pop off, you get 2 headhunters, call them to the back rows, and then because you Alchemagic, you grab 2 dragons from the drop, call them to front row. So you literally paid a Counterblast and a Soul Blast and you dropped on order, and now your Vanguard has triple drive, and you have a full field. You literally just paid a Counter Blast and Soul Blast for that. But just keep in mind, you Soul Blasted 2 already just now, because Soul Blast for Zorga skill and then Soul Blast for this order. So this comes up sometimes mid game or early game, which is really good because you can create an entire field from nothing. I've done it like about 2 times in this tournament. So this is a very interesting card to try out now. I'm loving this card. So this was a really good card to play. Tearful Malice. This card sees so much action now. Its cost is what is needed for this deck. You draw a card, but to actually paying this cost for this Tearful Malice card is to retire 2 cards, and you effectively draw a card, soul charge this card, and counter charge. So this card, one card does a lot. You want to retire your dragons normally so they can be in drop, because your dragons need to see that you performed Alchemy Magic while they're in the drop zone. If they're not in the drop zone by the time you resolve Alchemy Magic, you cannot call these out from your drop zone and gain plus 10k in a crit. So it's very technical. You have to time all of your Alchemy Magics. You have to make sure your drop zone is set up. And this card is a wonder. It gives you soul if you don't have any, which the Zorga needs. And then beautiful thing is you Soul Blast next turn. So you Soul Blast this order right back and you can reuse it right away. Beautiful. This needs no introduction. This is gather upon me, you Wandering Souls. Effectively give your Vanguard an additional drive. Tons of pressure. Your opponent has to think about your triple drive, or even I've done on grade 2. If I'm rushing my opponent, sometimes I'll prop this and then give my Vanguard an extra drive when I'm on grade 2 to get twin drive, just to pressure them. Great card. And I spam this normally. I try my best to spam this in every game just to keep the pressure on my opponent. Very, very underrated order card right here. This is Sweet That Become an Evil Dream. Counter Blast 1, draw a card, look at the top card of your deck, and you can either keep it on your deck or send it to the drop zone. Very, very underrated, but strong card. So there's a time I have done one time, draw a card, check top, I've seen the overtrigger, put it right back, and history, the rest is history. Cheeky play that I was talking about, ideal from far away. Usually what you do in opening game is you call a Headhunter, which is 8k. This is very, very destructive, this right here, along with this. So you drop this on your first turn, right? You go, literally your first turn. So you open with this and this, right? You drop this, you designate this target. They both get plus 5k because an order was activated for turn. It's a continuous skill, so they do not have to be present on the field. But you want one at least present on the field so you can get the ideal from far away. Every time a unit attacks, the unit that you designated with this card skill gets plus 5. Okay, so that opening turn, grade 1, your opponent's on grade 1, you're going second, destructive. You call this out, give it a crit from your drop zone. It doesn't have the plus 10 because you didn't Alchemy Magic, but you can give it a crit. Okay, boom, this is 13, plus 5, Vanguard swings, plus 5, any trigger, maybe not, okay, cool. This is swinging and being boosted another plus 5. So this effectively becomes a 28k booster, along with this being a 5k with a crit. So 33k with a crit. Then you drop a card for your grade 2 Black Tears Husk, grab this back, and if you have another dragon in drop zone, do it again. And then they're faced with the 38k, 33 with a crit for their grade 1 and grade 2 turn, if it's possible. So you can seal games very early with that, which I actually did in my round 2. Yeah.
So with that turn 1 play, is there any other like specific combos that you did that like you want to try and like pull off? Like I know what you did that last game, especially with that grade 1 over there. That was like the pinch because you had both your dragons on board. That was pretty strong. Yeah. But is there like anything else like that you combo with, like especially with your Shadow Cloaks? I was wondering if you had anything else to show us.
So for Shadow Cloak, unfortunately, I do not run the Nectar, Sensational Nectar. Nectar used to be a very tech play because you would have maybe one dragon and then you don't have another unit with a crit. So there were times that you call Shadow Cloak out, or Shadow Cloak is already there from your early rush and your opponent usually leaves it alone. So you would activate Nectar, give Shadow Cloak the 15k, and you'd also get a crit. So your opponent is faced with 2 crits still, and then your Vanguard hasn't attacked yet. Shadow Cloak, though, is very techy too, because in 2 of my games, I've bounced a unit from my field back to my hand. So during my last few games, I bounced an Overtrigger back to my hand for a shield. So basically, when you're Alchemy Magicking and your Shadow Cloak's on the field, you Soul Blast 1, which is very scary for Zorga, but if you have the fuel, you can do it. So if you have a Persona right hand, you have a crit in your drop zone that you're planning to call out that turn, go for it. You Soul Blast 1, you already have a unit on your field that you want to be called with Miasma. I probably called the Overtrigger with Miasma to the field. Soul Blast 1, bounce the Overtrigger back to my hand for a more shield value in hand. Also, I had to do that against my last opponent, which was Youthberg. Call this to the back row, Soul Blast to 1, bounce a PG back that I called out with Cloud of Miasma, and then probably call a Headhunter as well afterwards, just to fill in the space for a booster for a dragon. So this is a very difficult play sometimes, but if you know you can live the next turn, provided that you bounce the card back to your hand, you can mitigate the damage and live. And then if you have, most likely you have a Persona Ride in your hand, because you would not have used the skill if you didn't have Persona Ride in hand, which is what I did basically.
Okay.
I only empty my soul if there's a way to either get it back this turn or next turn.
Not a lot of people play this deck, but it's very much a toolbox, very combo based. It's very much a knowledge check, I believe, because in this deck you want to, utilize all your different order cards. You have your Shadow Cloak that searches your order cards, and usually in every scenario, depending on what order cards you have in your hand, you just search out for any other card you're missing, right?
Correct.
So this deck pretty much is in the right hands a very strong deck. I remember, especially this card, the Dragon.
Yes.
Dragon basically is the deck right here. This is the card you always want to see.
Exactly.
If there were to be any changes, like any future support you think Bushiroad would do, what would you think you would want for it?
The one card I think this deck really needs still is a surefire way to mill a unit from your deck. So for this card,
Like Foolish Burial.
yes,
Right.
you need a card. I guess some people are saying it would be an order. I prefer it maybe to be a unit, possibly a grade 1, and not just mill blindly. I want to be able to check the deck and choose a target.
All right, Cardell. Now, this is pretty much the deck right here. This is what we're working with now. You basically won. It was 5 rounds today. You went straight undefeated completely. You basically with those last 2 rounds, they were phenomenal. Now, if anything for the channel, if you want to say any fast final words, basically.
Don't count Zorga out. Try him out.
And what channel you're on today?
Heal on 6.
Nice. All right, we're signing off. Thank you.